shall come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Madam Chair.
Present.
Representatives McFall, Coleman,
Here, Zoom.
Stone, Green,
Present.
Rogers,
Here.
Scott,
Present.
Young,
Here.
Fitzgerald,
Here.
Grant, Harris,
Here.
Markinen, Bazat,
Present.
Aragona,
Here.
Rock,
Present remote.
Nair,
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 13 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam. Now we need a motion to adopt the minutes of March 2nd. Rep. Young, to adopt the minutes as printed. Hearing no objections, the minutes are adopted as printed. Today we will hear a second presentation from the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, this time regarding the Michigan Open Accounts Coalition and Banking Access. Here from DIFS is Ross H. Yudnock, Financial Services Legislative Liaison at DIFS. Thank you for coming. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As the chair said, I am Ross Yednock. I'm the Financial Services Legislative Liaison with the Department of Insurance and Financial Services. As you may recall from the previous presentations we've had, DIFS regulates the insurance industry and the financial services industry, which on the financial services side deals with installment loans, mortgage lending, vehicle motor sales finance, deferred presentment or payday lending, and state-chartered banks and credit unions. Consumer access to insurance and financial services is at the core of DIF's mission, vision, and values. DIFS works to ensure access to safe and secure insurance and financial services fundamental to opportunity and security for all Michigan residents. The Michigan Open Account Coalition, or MOAC, is one of DIF's initiatives to increase access to safe, secure, and affordable transactional bank and credit union accounts for Michigan residents. According to the FDIC, roughly 6% of Michigan households have no savings or checking account. The number is higher in certain areas and among certain demographics. It's estimated in Detroit that 1 in 5 households have no bank account. 1 in 5 black households also have no bank account. 1 in 4 households earning less than $15,000 a year have no bank account. When I get into talking about the accounts later on, of all the bank-on accounts that have been opened nationally, about 80% of those are earning $30,000 or less. Data on unbanked households also show that non-homeowners, those who are disabled and aged between 25 and 64, so still part of the age of the workforce, and those with no high school diploma are disproportionately unbanked compared to the general population. Now, why does access matter? I'll get into some of the reasons later on why people don't have bank accounts or leave the traditional financial system, but I want to talk about the impact of being unbanked. Forbes has reported that unbanked households spend as much as $3,000 a year on alternative financial services. That would be check cashing, money orders, bill pay, tax refund anticipation checks, and other high-cost products. Keep in mind these are transactional fees, so it's not loan fees or interest. It is just to access money and be part of the economy. The Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, or CFE Fund, has found that an average unbanked household spends as much as 10% of its income on alternative financial services, and this can add up to about $40,000 or more in a lifetime. And while that's a lot of money for anyone, it's a significant barrier for economic security for financially vulnerable households living at, around, or below the poverty line, or even those living paycheck to paycheck. Data from financial counselors working with the CFE Fund have found that lower income earners that have found that their unbanked clients are half as likely as those with bank accounts to increase savings, and more than a third less to establish a new credit score while working with the counselors. However, unbanked clients who became banked during the counseling sessions were 8 times more likely to have increased their savings compared to those who had never been banked. In short, the data shows us that having even a basic relationship with a credit union or bank matters to one's financial wellness. So why are people unbanked? According to the City of Lansing's Office of Financial Empowerment, which runs Bank on Lansing, some of the top reasons cited in the surveys they've done are unable to maintain a minimum balance, which is 41% said that, negative past experience with a bank or credit union, which was 27%, and I can get a little more into that in a little later on. Uncomfortable dealing with financial institutions, 19%, and 18% said they had a judge or lien against them and were worried about garnishment. This local data here in Lansing corresponds with national research that unbanked consumers feel like they don't have enough money, concern over fees being unpredictable or hidden or too high, non-sufficient fund or bounce check fees being the big one, and confusing terms that often result in having what little money was in the account depleted due to the fees that they accrued unexpectedly. Roughly half of banked households had a bank account in the past, and that's important to note because these were folks who were part of the financial mainstream, if you will, and then left for the negative experience that they had. In order to decrease the number of unbanked households, these barriers need to be addressed. Fortunately, there is a best practice solution that's been going on since about 2006. When the city county treasurer of San Francisco, Jose Cisneros, who is a Michigan native born in Muskegon, launched Bank on San Francisco to connect unbanked consumers in that community with financial institutions. What had happened was he had been sending out tax refunds and realized a lot of them were coming back from check cashers, and these were to lower income households. And he was going, this was money meant for them. Why is it being depleted? So through a series of working in the community with the different community groups, realized that there was an unbanked population. So he went to the banks he was working with as the county treasurer, city county treasurer, and said, we want you to offer these accounts that can overcome these barriers. So what started as a few banks offering accounts to meet the needs of this population has grown into CFE Fund's Bank On initiative that as of I think yesterday when I looked at this, there were 340 different accounts nationwide that meet the National Bank On account standards. 30 of these accounts are available in Michigan at roughly 27 different financial institutions. This national movement is also comprised of 98 coalitions across the country, 82 of which are local or municipal or regionally based. 2 of them are here in Michigan, Bank On Lansing at the City of Lansing and Bank On Detroit at the City of Detroit. There are also 16 statewide coalitions, which Michigan Open Account Coalition is one of them, and we are one of 4 coalitions housed within a state agency, the others being Colorado, Illinois, and Oregon. The CFE Fund provides an overall model for local and state coalitions that they can follow, develops national account standards, I'll get into that in a second, reviews and certifies accounts on those standards, and works with participating financial institutions to collect and share data. The CFE Fund also works to provide support and technical assistance to local and state coalitions to bring together service providers and financial institutions to meet the specific needs of their community's unbanked population. This makes each coalition a little different, and that's a good thing because it's meeting the needs of that particular community. It also helps to develop new best practices to meet those needs that can then be shared across the country with different coalitions, and they can look for new integration points, places where unbanked consumers can attain the benefits of being banked in a tangible way, such as tax time through housing counseling, summer youth job programs, returning citizen efforts, government support, stimulus, new job programs, things like that, where bank accounts will help people get not have to get a check and get it direct deposited. To address the needs of unbanked households in Michigan last year, DIFS partnered with the Michigan Bankers Association, the Michigan Credit Union League, several statewide nonprofits, including CEDM, or the Community Economic Development Association, Michigan Community Action, and the Michigan Association of United Ways, as well as Bank on Detroit and Bank on Lansing, and the CFE Fund to launch the Michigan Open Account Coalition. MOAC seeks to encourage more state-chartered banks and credit unions to offer bank-on certified accounts and find ways to connect community groups with local branches offering these accounts. What are these accounts? The certified accounts, that's at the heart of the coalition. These are the bank-on national certified accounts. In your handouts, you should have a sheet that looks, excuse me, sheet that says Bank on National Account Standards. What these accounts are, it's based off of going back to 2006, and they get updated every few years on feedback from the financial institutions participating and the local coalitions. But at the core, these are transactional accounts, so checking accounts or prepaid account, including checklist checking. They have a debit card. They have a low opening minimum deposit of $25 or less. They can charge maintenance fees of $5. Many do not, some do. And when I was talking about negative experiences before, it's the predictability of the fees. And what often happens, and I know it happened to me in my youth, where you had a monthly fee and then a low balance fee, and you think you have the money, and the maintenance fee comes out, and then the low balance comes out, you write a check, and then you get more fees, and suddenly you're overdrawn. And those are the negative experiences, and the money's depleted. And for low-income folks, they're like, I am never going through that again. So maintenance fees are okay, but they're predictable. They know. The big one is no non-sufficient fund fees, or the inability to have them. And then the last one, none of the account activation, closure, dormancy, inactivity, low balance fees, none of those. Bank branch access is important. Telephone is important. ATM has restrictions of $2.50, but those are all the standards on these accounts. In Michigan, as I mentioned, there are 30 different accounts offered at 27 financial institutions, 22 of which have bank branch locations or credit union branch locations. They cover 67 counties. There are 5 that don't have physical locations but offer online, and those are banks and credit unions. In all, there are 1,059 branch locations in the state where a Michigan consumer can walk into a credit union or bank branch and get a bank-on certified account. I won't go through the whole list of accounts. I've got the sheet. That's not the right sheet there. But you can go to our website, and they are all listed there. Next thing I want to talk about is the integration points, and this is kind of why I'm here as well, to talk about how we could partner together. As DIFS continues to work with other MOAC partners like the Michigan Bankers Association and the Credit Union League to increase the number of financial institutions offering these accounts, we're also working to connect with a diverse group of stakeholders that can identify critical integration points and provide opportunities to either inform consumers about these accounts or directly connect with community-based service organizations working with unbanked clients with the necessary resources and information they need to provide this information and help get their unbanked clients banked. DIFS has created a Michigan Open Account Coalition outreach toolkit. It was emailed to, I believe, all of your district inboxes Monday. Some of the materials were provided to you today. This includes a PSA, a printable one-pager, which I believe is part of the handouts, and sample social media posts. Included in this packet, which is included with your stuff today. This was designed to get the word out about the availability of and features of these accounts, and can be used by community groups and legislative offices in newsletters, social media, and in-person events. The toolkit's available in English, Spanish, I believe Mandarin Chinese, and Arabic. DIFS would encourage you to use these materials to get information out to residents of your district. I apologize for the water. It's allergy season, and it's the time of year where I want the ground either hard or soft, because my kitchen is filled with dog prints. It does not make a point to clean it. Anyways, as MOAC enters into year 2, DIFS will continue to work to expand the number of available certified account offerings and connect unbanked Michiganders with these accounts. We are working to grow partnerships and continue with and connect with non-profit trade associations representing the community-based organizations and service providers, other state departments where integration strategies make sense, and with local organizations that want to connect with financial institutions and local financial institutions with certified accounts, with the goal of growing more connections to seed local bank-on efforts across the state, like Detroit, like Lansing. This is where DIFS is very interested in working with legislators. There is the CFE fund has a coalition playbook that helps start local coalitions and provides kind of a roadmap. And using that, we can convene local groups of financial institutions, municipal leaders, other public agencies, community and social service groups, and other philanthropic partners and leaders in your community to work on a local strategy to promote safe access to transactional and low-cost accounts. Each stakeholder has a role to play, identifying programmatic connections, marketing about the accounts and the program itself, and finding referral pipelines to, again, connect unbanked populations with these accounts. DIFS wants to ensure that every Michigan resident has a safe and secure place where they can put their money, manage their finances, and improve their financial future. So call us. You know your community. Let's work together and find a way to bring more people within the financial mainstream. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and it's right in my wheelhouse and with the things I want to accomplish. To learn about, there are so many resources for our unbanked Michiganders. It's just huge. I'd like to now, in the interest of time, I'd like to ask any committee. Oh, I see several committee members. So we're going to start with Representative McFall. Do you have a question?
I do. Just a quick question. I apologize for being late. There was a bad accident. Can you tell me if these require credit checks? Okay, because I don't see that on here, and I'm sure that would be a question that would be often asked.
Yep, there's not a credit check. There is something that is called. I'm drawing a blank. It's not a credit check. It is a tool banks used to find out if people have had bad, owe money to other banks or credit unions. And again, I'm drawing a total blank on what it's called. It is similar to, the credit reporting agencies, but this is just for that. They can sometimes they will check that, and accounts can be denied if it was an issue of fraud, because those folks may not be eligible to reenter. But if it's an issue of, like I was explaining, I bounced a couple checks, I ended up owing $50, I can make that whole. It's Check Systems. That's the name of the entity that. Okay,
just because I know sometimes that can be a barrier as well. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again for being here. A couple of questions for you. When you talked about the unbanked and the fees that can start to accumulate, and when they go down that rabbit hole and how difficult it is to get out. And so once they finally get out, they now have a bad taste in their mouth as it relates to going and having a bank account again, right? So a lot of what you all have to do is build trust, right? building trust. For me, when I think about building trust, I think about hearing from folk that I know that have experienced the same thing but have gotten out of it. So personal testimonies really, really matter. And I don't see like any of that in your social media or any of those things. And we need to see real people who have recovered, so that people can know if it can happen for them, somebody like my neighbor around the corner, it can happen for me, and then I'll be willing to trust the institution again. So I'm wondering, is there a place where there are like testimonies where we found that this thing is working for people?
Yeah, and I would point to Bank on Detroit. That's a local effort. They are able to collect stories. When this was launched, just under a year ago, it was at the Boys and Girls Club, I believe, in Detroit, and Bank on Detroit was there, and they had a client who had experienced just what you're talking about, and they were at the press conference, and it was, as I've heard from people who were there, I was unable to be there, unfortunately, for a personal matter, but that was part of that story. We often do get asked to find clients, and that is something we're continuing trying to do, to share those stories. But I'm also respective. Not everybody wants to share those stories because they may not trust me, but the Bank on Lansing, Bank on Detroit, that is really a repository of these. I hope to be able to bring those organizations in because they can bring those stories to the forefront better than I can.
I'll follow up, Madam Chair. So to that, because you're here doing the presentations, I think it still would be good for you guys to do some diligence and include it, at least one or two, because there are people who are concerned about their neighbors falling in the same rabbit hole and who will be willing to share their stories. So I'm just asking that you all consider including that there would be on your website links to, if it's not directly to testimonies, but to the folks who have the testimonies so that folks can hear it.
We are working on that, and we'll do that. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Representative Aragona.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, sir, for being here. So just so I understand, this is a partnership between DIFs and bankers and credit unions, correct?
And community groups, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, the banks and the credit unions are where these accounts are, if I may be so blunt. What is DIFs bringing to the table on this?
Encouraging more financial institutions, particularly state chartered banks and credit unions, to offer these accounts.
Okay.
We'd like to see, more than 30 accounts available to Michigan consumers, and then also working to get the word out. It's where these coalitions have been successful. It's been bringing together large different entities, banks obviously, but the community groups, and then different what I called integration points. So we're in the process of working with other state departments where it makes sense, where let's work on getting direct deposit for unbanked population and connect them with these resources and tools.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. And I mean, it's a very cool program. And I'm sure that even the members up here can think back to a time where we, made some type of dumb financial decision, and obviously there has to be a program to get back on that better financial track, right? So do you have any data on, I would guess that the people participating in these programs would have a improved credit score over time. Do you have any data on people going through who have taken advantage of these accounts and where they've gone financially afterwards?
Yeah, the data collection at the national level and to some extent at the state level, it's not real time. The
Sure.
CFE fund works with participating financial institutions are not required to report data. Many of them do. It's housed in what's called the Data Hub at the St. Louis Federal Reserve. And the latest report was for 2021, and it came out in December of last year. I can send you information on that. That does talk about account usage. Don't quote me on whether there's credit score impact. I do know the City of Lansing's Bank On effort does have some information on improved credit scores, and that is tracked. I wish it was real time. It isn't at this point, and we're looking on ways to better quantify that. But this has been going on for, I think the Data Hub's been around for 5 years, and they've got good data on how these accounts do impact their clients.
Sure. Okay.
And benefit the financial institutions. I
Yeah.
think 82% of bank on accounts are new clients to the institution.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah. And I know the banks and the credit unions have also made an effort over the last few years, even with legislation, to increase financial literacy and to bring financial literacy programs. Is that something that you have, or can you partner with this program to ensure that these new account holders also are going through some type of financial literacy to help them better themselves in the future?
Yeah, that is definitely happening at the local level, and in connecting with those different groups that are working with the people. To Representative Young's point of view, getting those stories there. They're working with in Detroit, working with a counselor on improving credit or whatever issue they're working on. They get them in the financial institution, and financial education is part of that.
Gotcha.
It's baked in.
Okay. And last question here: if you have this population that does not have an account, we're trying to help them establish some credit, help them have these accounts, especially so that they're paying far less in fees, right? I would guess that population would find it very hard to open up a line of credit for a large purchase such as a home. Is there any data, or is there any way that we can help guide them to say, if this is something that you want to take advantage of, this is how you would do it?
And that is part of the model, yes. We don't view these accounts, and I know financial institutions across the country that offer these accounts. To the conversations I've had, these are entry or re-entry into traditional financial services. And these accounts, sometimes they're called second chance accounts, sometimes they're just bare bones accounts. But after you have that account, 2 years go by, your financial situation's a little better. Maybe you want an account that's a little more robust, that doesn't have these guardrails on them. It might have overdraft protection or these various other things, because you do want to buy a home and save money for a down payment. And all of that's part of the ongoing financial growth of your household or your family. So this is kind of a starting point, or in some cases a resetting point, to get to that for home ownership and ultimately longer lasting financial security.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. For our members that are on Zoom, do you have any questions? Please identify yourself first. Well, I'm not hearing any. Okay. Representative Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, sir, for being with us pretty much every committee meeting. I know it's a lot, and feel like we're developing a relationship with you, so that's
great.
A good thing. So, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I have kind of a two-part question here. One is, how do you overcome the lien or garnishment issues? And also, how do you deal with a person that has or that owes fees to another bank that they're trying to overcome that issue?
I'll take the second question first, and that tends to be worked out on an individual basis. Sometimes fees are waived, sometimes the person makes whole with that institution before opening the account. It depends on an individual basis, how long the debt is and all of that. The lien and garnishment issue is, that's another issue, and there may be parts of the population that won't want to enter, and working with them through deeper financial counseling on the lien and garnishment issue to, do a whole address of their financial situation with a housing counselor to figure out what is a budget plan, what is a, payback plan to, get them to the point where they don't have to worry about that. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. It is something that, and when I talked about, finding different best practices, that's what different coalitions are working with. I know one coalition is working on helping to get people who, their issue is they've racked up a lot of court and driving fees. How do we get those abated or forgiven or, paid off to get you back in the system. So it's going to be individual to that particular person and also that community.
Madam Chair, do you mind quick follow-up? So when a person's trying to open an account with one of these banking institutions and they owe money to another bank, so they can't open a new account until that other stuff is paid off, do you know?
Again, it'll depend on each individual circumstance.
All right. Thank you.
I do know that if you were to come in and want to open an account and I look at this, I may contact the other financial institution. We may set up an arrangement, or they may say, hey, Rep Harris was fraudulently stealing from us. Don't give him an account, and then I'm not obligated to. Not that I would say.
Can we strike that from the record, Madam Chair? Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bizat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to, as a good presentation, I enjoyed it. I was trying to remember when I first opened my first account, and it wasn't until I got home from the service, got married. Is there any early education in the schools? Is there anything like that happening? I was just kind of curious.
Yes. And I know that anecdotally from stories I've read, conversations I've had, there are organizations working on children's savings accounts. That's where Bank On fits in some of this. I do know, and again, when I mentioned check systems, just like you can request your own credit report, not necessarily your score, but you go to, and I forget what the website is there, you can go to Check Systems and request your Check Systems report. Because when I first heard about this years ago, I did that, and it showed that I think I was 12 and opened an account at the Wilmette State Bank in Illinois. So all of that is tracked. It's interesting, but that's the system that tracks that, to Rep Harris's point, that kind of helps financial institutions make sure that they're safe and secure in who they're working with. So.
Representative Fitzgerald.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you again for being here today. I do have a question about the opening of the account, because I see that we have a lot of websites and electronic materials that are available. But I think that in this polling, you talk about the frustration with the institution sometimes, or the being encumbered by that. The time in a branch spent opening the account, the amount of information provided, what are we doing to make that a more manageable experience for some people who may have that background or an issue in the past with an institution? How are we making that a more, welcoming or easy experience for them to encourage the opening of these accounts?
That would be a great question. It is a great question. It'd be a great question to have Bank On Lansing or Bank On Detroit here, because they are doing some of those things at the local level. But nationally, it's going to vary at each branch, at each local connection there. At the state level, they can go in, they can do it online. But that is a barrier that this overall effort nationally is working to address.
Representative Grant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm really excited about this, and I know that we're going to work together on something in my area. I have two questions. One is the goal for people to start with one of these accounts but then gradually move to a more traditional account? Is that a part of the program?
Ideally, yes. I'm not someone who says, what works for me is going to work for you. This is to get them back in, and then to, have that relationship with their financial institution if they're working with a counselor as well, but to, as their financial situation changes, to find different products and services that better meet their needs and help them achieve their goals. So to Rep. Aragona's point, in buying a home, it would be we start here, and then 3 years later we've got you in a different account with a CD save type thing for a down payment.
But there's no time limit on here. They could technically start here and be here.
Yep.
Okay. And the second question that I have, I know you've spoken to a few things that like Detroit, Bank On Detroit or Bank On Lansing are doing. If a new group forms, is there like a connection where they can connect and get kind of the best practices or those specific things that other areas are doing to learn? Do they meet regularly?
Absolutely. There's the statewide connections. There's connecting with DIFs. There is a biweekly integration call, is what they call it, through the Cities for Financial Empowerment, and that encompasses, I think Atlanta was on yesterday. You had New York, you had Pennsylvania, I think Ohio, but there's definitely a shared learning.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone? Hearing none, thank you, Ross, for your your presentation. I hope our committee members found it as insightful as I did. Let's see. We need a motion now to excuse absent members. Okay. Which one? I heard two. Actually, Representative Harris moves. Representative Harris moves to excuse Representative Markinen. Okay, are there any objections? Hearing none, Representative Markinen is excused. Okay, so seeing no further business before the committee, we need a motion to adjourn. Representative Stone moves. Hearing no objections, this committee meeting is adjourned.